Hi guys, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to the next stage of the retro review. We're going to be comparing the 1D Mark IIN against my first DSLR, 1D DSLR, the 1D Mark III. Now let's get straight into the comparisons on these, then we'll look at some images side by side and I'll give you my overall thoughts. So let's get into that spec look right now. So here we have the two cameras side by side. We have the Mark IIN on the left and we have the Mark III on the right. Mark III was my first 1D, so I know this camera very well. The nice thing with this one here is they started using the more modern batteries. So if you compare the two, you've got the early LP-E4 on the Mark III, and then you have the older NP-E3 on the Mark IIN, and you lose the locking feature off the Mark IIs and earlier. It just comes in and out really nice and easy. The shape of the camera also changes. You get a much more streamlined, quite a slim sort of design head. The camera does grow a little bit as well because of everything they've kind of packed into there, but it still has that traditional 1D look. If we look from the sides here, you still say pretty much got the same kind of looking camera from that profile. So when you get to the back, you kind of notice, even though you did have the bigger screen on the 2N anyway compared to the 2, they went even bigger with the screen on the Mark III, and this makes it super clear to see anything. They moved the secondary screen down a little bit to give you that extra bit of room, and moved all those buttons away and started moving them across the top where needed and bring them all across down here quite neatly. The physical on-off system is all the same, but you do lose the on-off system up here and you replace that with a top hat, which is way more useful. The way that you get into the cards is exactly the same, and they do use the same cards, compact flash and an SD card. You do gain, which is a massive positive when you go to a Mark III, you gain the back button focus, which replaces the AF point button, and that is moved, but that is a much more useful button to have, so definitely worth that sacrifice. Go on to the other side here, not crazy amount of changes. You've got the same sort of systems on there, and then when we go and look on the top, vision there for you, a bit more. So you gain an extra button on top here, you get your ISO button on top, and then your drive modes are the same here, but you have a couple of combination modes like those two for the mode, but apart from that they're pretty much the same sort of zones. What you don't have to do though, you don't have to keep held down in the menu system to go through all those different features. You can just press it once and then scroll through the menu, which is a really useful thing on that. Also, they changed the colour of the hot shoe from black to silver. Not sure why, but that's part of what they did there. Internals of the camera, what they changed was they went from 8.2 megapixels up to 10.1 megapixels. Both share the same 1.3 times crop factor. Both have 45 AF points. The 1D Mark IIN will go 100 to 1600 ISO, while the 1D Mark III will go to 3200 ISO. You do not want to shoot this over sort of 800 really if you want to get a nice sharp photo, but it was an improvement over that one there. Both will get you up to 1/8000th of a second on the shutter speed, and as we said, on the back end you got a 3-inch screen compared to a 2-inch screen. So they're the main differences on there. I say this was my first DS1D DSLR, and I will talk to you about some of the foibles and feebles and stuff like that I had with this camera when I owned it. I have spoken to them about them before and I've done the individual video on this camera, but let's head into my overall thoughts of the two comparison right now. So here we have the first images of some daffodils. All the photos taken in the same settings on both cameras, both using a 300mm f2.8 at 2.8 as well. As you can see, the imagery, the colours, everything you're kind of getting here, it's a little bit brighter on the Mark III, but overall both giving great details, great colours, and just working very, very nicely alongside that 300mm 2.8 and delivering very good images. Next one here, we got some water. You can see the colours are actually a little bit nicer on the 1D Mark III here. It was getting a little bit darker as I was sat here taking these photos, but are taken at the same time, again the same lenses. But you can see you're drawing out a bit more of the greenery and that sort of mossy type colour on the right hand side of 1D Mark III. So in lower lights, as you'd expect, the newer camera definitely performs slightly better, but still both giving great details and really both very usable photos. And finally, because it was getting really dark, what I thought I'd do is get some photos of the moon. These are both shot handheld with that 300mm, and the details on both were absolutely fine. These aren't cropped in, these are exactly how they were through the camera. It was a little bit later when I took the one on the Mark III, which is why it is ever so slightly darker in the background, but the actual moons themselves are looking absolutely fine. Ironically though, the one on the right for the 1D Mark III looks a little bit more cropped in than the 2N, even though they are taken in the same position, same lens, and these photos are not cropped in at all. The one on the right is bigger for the Mark III, but both really nicely detailed photos from that distance, and when you do zoom in you do get some really nice details of some of the craters on the moon. So that's everything against these cameras side by side. As you can see, still both produce absolutely great imagery, no issues there at all. The actual condition of the bodies, the feel of them, really great. That magnesium body. The 1D Mark IIN is slightly heavier in the hand, but it's still a great camera. Both deliver. The thing you have to be careful with, and we're going to talk a little bit about the 1D Mark III like I have before in previous videos, be careful when you buy one of these cameras. If you can test it before you get it, because some do have an AF issue where the reliability on the autofocus isn't as good as it can be. The one I've got seems to be working okay, but it does still miss occasionally. It is a known issue with this camera body that there is a slight issue with some of them with the autofocus, and with the age of it now, you obviously can't get that repaired by Canon anymore. You could probably get it looked at by a third-party person if they've got the parts for a camera of this age, but just test it if you can. If you're buying from a shop, test it. If you're buying it online, try and get one with low shutters and in good condition, and you should be getting something that is a very usable. But if you do get one that works, it is a good camera. The way it feels, it fits in hand, it doesn't look massively different from a 1DX at a glance. You've got the same nice big screen, you've got really nice 10 frames per second on there, and it just overall is a very usable working camera. And say that goes the same to the Mark IIN. It's a little bit cheaper, still feels great. It's a bit heavier even though it's a smaller body. You cannot get batteries for them anymore, so you've got to make sure that you do have a fully working battery, or at least comes with a spare as well. But it doesn't have some of the creature comforts of the 1D Mark III, like the back button focus. That is an absolute huge one, and having the ISO button up on top where your shooting finger is, that is another huge one. So for those alone, if you can afford to, jump up that little bit, you get a little bit megapixels, a little bit more creature comforts, and we'll have a camera where you can get new batteries for still if you need them on the third party, and just a bit more usable and work around. But if you want to try the older cameras out, still an absolute great buy. So I hope you enjoyed the video, hope you're enjoying this series. I have a few things listed that you guys want to see moving forward. I'm going to do videos on the R10 once the camera show's over this weekend, and I'm going to get those out with different combination lenses and talk about the camera itself and doing a full review of it, because a few of you have asked for that. I'm also going to be looking at, in the very near future, trying to purchase a 300mm f4, because a few of you have asked for videos on that lens too, and I can do videos comparing that to the 300mm 2.8 with converters, using on mirrorless. There's a lot of scope I can use by getting that lens. I will also then be looking at getting a 400mm 5.6, because some of you have looked at that and gone, can you please look at that too? If you have anything that you want me to add to the list, please let me know down in the comments down below. Like the video as always, subscribe to me if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one. Goodbye.